Welcome back to Chokitibo Media. Free Dele Farotimi now. Free Dele Farotimi now. Free Dele Farotimi now. Follow the rule of law. Free him. Do you know that yesterday a court in Abuja rolled out a judgment that says the book written by Dele Farotimi should be banned? You know the book we are talking about. The judicial system that has been bastardized. That is what it's all about. So, a court in Abuja said that book should be taken off the shelf anywhere. But never mind, never worry. I will bring to you here in piecemeal, as I got it from the reading of MAYEGUN General Political. So if you don't have a chance of buying the book, or you haven't listened to the accusation and the bone of contention why Dele Farotimi was arrested, I will try to bring part of the book, or the most important part of the book, for you to listen to. So after you listen to that, put your comment in the comment section and let me know what you feel. Actually, many people passing judgment on this book haven't even read the book at all. And that is why this is an opportunity for you to listen to part of the, part of those, of what is written in that book that we're talking about. In the other cultures, the people have been speaking, lawyers have been speaking, everybody's passing their opinion, but majorly from the camp of Afe Babalola, they have also gone to the media also to start to debunk, part of those things that are in that book. I will try my best to bring to you as well later on what I gathered from the media, how what Dele Farotimi accused Afe Babalola of doing is being debunked on the media, on the television. Actually, I didn't see much of this, or I don't see much of this at all on the social media, but on conventional media, they are also standing up, and they are using the court as well, moving from one court to the other to challenge Dele, calling him to court and stuff like this. I learned that there was a case instituted against him in Ibadan, one in Abuja, one in Lagos, and everywhere. I think they want to weigh him down with lawsuits here and there over this defamation stuff that we are arguing about. Don't let me ramble. Don't let me rumble too much over this, and let me leave you to listen to this part that I'm bringing to you. Don't forget to share, like, and subscribe. Let everybody be aware the reason why it is like this. And that is the main point that I'm trying to prove in this broadcast of mine. See you next time.
And when the law, it is the law that will decide who the felon is. You don't judge and decide who the felon is when you have not even had a substantive matter. And that is why at this preliminary stage, you don't expect the court to jump into the arena. The fact that the court didn't give him bail is wrong. The High Court had given him bail. The Federal High Court in Ado-Ekiti gave him bail. They took him to Federal High Court. Now they had another one is springing up in Abuja, but I guess that one is a civil matter. The one in Ibadan is also a civil matter because they came by writ of summons. The one in the magistrate court, obviously, that magistrate cannot, in all honesty, say that he is acting out of his own self-will. He cannot. Because if he does, there's no reason why he will not give him bail. At least give him bail, and then when he perfect his bail condition, he will now come to answer for all the issues. The issue of whether it is a criminal defamation or not, and whether it exists in Ekiti or not, is yet to be fine-tuned. Because I've had one former Attorney General of Ekiti State that says that, yes, the law of Ekiti still recognizes that there's criminal defamation. And everybody will now begin to quote, yes.
Check the laws of 2021. I have empirical proof here. I read through it. It doesn't recognize criminal defamation. It only talks about section 70,
which
where there's a breach of public place through publication.
Through publication. Good. A breach of public peace through defamation.
Yeah.
Which
No, not through defamation.
No, through publication, sorry.
Yeah, so that's not criminal defamation.
Through publication, which of course is relying on the Criminal Code Act.
Criminal defamation was not
all right.
expressed.
Relying on Criminal Code Act, and it was integrated by Ekiti. I mean, by Ekiti State in that 2011 laws of Ekiti State of Nigeria. 2012.
No,
that
2012.
There was that one. That one. I am not arguing whether it is still there.
Voila everywhere, man. Well, you know what? Let's wrap it up. Okay, let's go to chapter 9, which happened to be the last chapter. Lawal Pedro the Jackal. Lawal Pedro lent himself as a negotiator and became a broker between those the Eletu were seeking to assert their judgment against and the judgment debtors. He began to play a double game. In one breath, he would assure the affected persons that he was seeking to find peace. And in another breath, he was assuring the Eletus that he would be able to find them some sort of settlement. He held himself out as the solution to the problems of both the litigants and those affected by the judgment. He inserted himself into the situation and became a factor for the Eletus and their victims. In the midst of this, Oyekun Abdullahi, who had been connected to the Ojomu family long before I was called to the bar, and who still enjoyed a charming relationship with the Kabiyesi and the Balogun, and who was equally friendly with some of my clients, was busy undermining the client's confidence in my capacity to do my job as a lawyer, erroneously advising them that the Supreme Court judgment remained valid and that they should consider negotiating a settlement with the Eletus. I had a situation where the Solicitor General of Lagos State was advising my client to discount my legal advice because he was interested in brokering deals between my clients and the Eletus, who he knew or should have known had a fraudulent claim at best. Oyekun Abdullahi, on the other hand, was largely motivated, perhaps, not only by money, but also by personal relationships that had gone sour. He did everything under the sun to make sure that my client did not have confidence in the legal advice I was offering them. Eventually, under pressure from the Eletus and Lawal Pedro, quite a number of clients settled the Eletus claim in sums running into billions of naira. The Eletus and their lawyers continued to assert their claims per the fraudulently procured warrants, and the rapacious nature of their audacious land grabs meant that every unbuilt plot of land in Osakpa Agongi axis became fair game to them. This refusal to discriminate in the manner of their land grabs brought my office into contact with a rather interesting man, Alhaji Tunde Balogun, the immediate past commissioner for local government and chieftaincy affairs in the state at the time, who later became the chairman of APC in Lagos State. Alhaji Balogun searched me out. He came to my office of his own accord. I had never met him before he came to my office, and I had equally never heard of him. A particularly parsimonious man, he let on a skillfully shrewd and detailed negotiation process during the course of his negotiation of our professional fee. Alhaji Balogun had a story to tell. He owned 2 plots at Agungi, he said, bought from the Ojomu family long ago, as the story went. The Eletu had sold one of his plots to a developer of Igbo origin, who had gone pretty far in the construction of an estate to which one of his plots had become a tiny part. The second remained empty, even though he was convinced that it had also been sold to a third party. One of my favorite characters in the TV series, Game of Thrones, Lord Baelish, said, Sometimes, when I try to understand a person's motives, I play a little game. I assume the worst. What's the worst reason they could possibly have for saying what they say or doing what they do? Then I ask myself, how well does that reason explain what they say and what they do? I have mulled over these words as I have sought to understand exactly how the different threads are connected in the Dele conspiracy. Justice Abdullahi was the chairperson at my wedding reception. She was the one that had employed me to work with my first employers, Basa and Partners. And we had not had any word to say to each other since May 2003, when she had visited my home and rudely sent me to fetch my wife for her, whilst she sat in a car at my gate waiting for my wife to bring her the checkbook to the office account to which my wife was signatory, even as Milady was the controller of the purse. The very same Justice Abdullahi, who was busy undermining my credibility and legal knowledge with key clients, was the very same person that was surreptitiously referring Alhaji Balogun to me. I became quite suspicious and began to sniff and dig around. I called up my wife, and then I called Mr. Mike Bayowa, my former boss and the normal head of chamber in my time at Basa and Partners. Both confirmed that Alhaji was Madam's client, and Mr. Mike further revealed that he was aware of the problems, having been earlier briefed by both Alhaji and Justice Oyekun Abdullahi. I became even more intrigued. Now, Alhaji's case was interesting to me for several reasons, but the most important thing about the case was the timing of the brief and its provenance. Bigger clients were being urged to settle with the Dele by forces within the Lagos state government and judiciary. But here we are, paying counsel to a prince of the political establishment, a two-time commissioner of the state, and one that was still very much in the good books of the powers that be in the state. I became as intrigued as I was suspicious, and I took on the case after pretending to argue over the fees, in which I had little or no interest. I sued the Dele and their buyer on Alhaji's instruction in suit number LD/3121/14. With Alhaji's case, I was able to make the case I had always made against the Dele judgment. I plead particulars of their fraud. I filed evidence of the survey fraud. I sought to draw them out and into a defense of their shaky ground. We sued the Igbo developer, sued the Dele, but I was rather unhappy when instead of fighting the claims before the court, the Dele opted to settle the case on clear terms, considered the validity of my client's claim, and procured the Igbo developer to pay 30 million naira to our client for one of the plots. They went further to pay the commercial going rate, whilst accepting our client's claim to the second plot and vacating same immediately after. The Dele agreed to pay 30 million naira in compensation for the encroached plot and gave up all claims in relation to the second plot. This is in spite of the fact that they were busy extorting billions from other people with the same judgments. These terms of settlement eventually became the judgment of the court. Now, you must understand how Lagos State works in order to understand the real significance of Alhaji Balogun's case. Lagos is in truth a village. Everybody knows everybody. There is something inherently incestuous about the Lagos Power Society. You will find very quickly, if you know who to ask, that everyone is somehow related. If they are not brother or sister from Oluwogbowo or Itailewa, it is that they went to some school, church, or mosque together. The elite of Lagos are all somehow related. Oyekun Abdullahi was the lawyer to the Ojomu Shiftansi family in her days as a lawyer. Legend has it that she was the one that brought Rotimi Williams into the Ojomu case. But what is beyond argument is her linkage to the Ojomu family. She was their lawyer and has remained a trusted member of the Ojomu in council. He knows more about the cases that culminated in the Supreme Court judgment And she also knew everything that I had known about the Eletus fraud and Afe Babalola's shenanigans. Oyekun Abdullahi was aware of the effect of case M/779/93. She had the Ojomus brief, as did Rotimi Williams Chambers. He knew that I was correct in my position that the Supreme Court could not have granted the Eletus more than the 10 hectares given to them in the case relied upon by the Supreme Court in its original ruling. She understood the incongruity of an Eletu claim for 254 hectares in the face of the clear judicial estoppel raised by their pleadings and the judgment in M/779/93. She knew, and she sent Alhaji Balogun to me, knowing that I was correct in calling out the fraud. I know as a fact that Oyekun Abdullahi advised several clients to discount my legal advice on the Eletu case, and did go to great length to disparage my knowledge of law. But the same person asked Alhaji Balogun to come to me for help. I did not fully understand why until the libel suit I had filed against Afe Babalola was assigned to her court. The last time I saw Lawal Pedro San, he was at a table away from mine at a Lagos party. A friend's mom was having her 80th birthday party somewhere in Ikeja. King Sunny Ade was on the bandstand. Mama was a sissy in her youth. Sunny had waxed an LP serenading her beauty, and men had fallen on Mama's mountains. It was a high-octane party. As is the practice in Lagos, the celebrant had given a list of her invited guests to the musician, and the first I became aware of the presence of the man was when Sunny Ade began to sing his praises. Lawal Pedro was the Solicitor General of Lagos State at the time that the Eletus got their judgment from the Supreme Court. I had become aware of the man very early in my practice life. My friend and second employer, Ademola Adeshina Ogunlana, had worked for him before establishing his own law practice. And as I worked with Ogunlana, he would speak occasionally of his time with Peddy, as he called Pedro in those days, perhaps with some affection. I later came to hear enough from multiple sources to conclude from my own personal knowledge of Sherubawan that he must have coined the nickname Peddy, having characterized the man as a lovable rogue. That Pedro is a rogue is not in doubt. I will let you decide whether he be lovable or evil. At a meeting called by Lagos State, which was shared by Lawal Pedro in his capacity as the Solicitor General of the state, Pedro was given the task of finding a peaceful solution to the impasse by Adeipaye, the mild-mannered Attorney General of the state, who had been tasked with the duty by BRF, Fashola, and to avoid the likelihood of a breakdown of law and order. Lawal Pedro began to speak as if he was the retained counsel for the Eletus. In response to our objections to having the Eletus described as a chieftaincy family, whose claims are rooted in traditional land ownership, Pedro began to propound rather strange doctrines for the emergence of such families. That was when it began to get interesting, and the point where the extent of Lawal Pedro's shameless capitulation to the pursuit of filthy lucre became glaring and undeniable. The plot thickened when Agbenla, who was also a member of the multi-sectoral government team, became ambivalent about his own composite survey report. Surveying is essentially an actuarial science. There are no variances to be had in the interpretation of a survey. And once a surveyor has the information on the survey, he should not require further information before locating the land on the globe. For a drawing describing a property to be worthy of the name survey, it must describe the land with particularity. Agbenla had been compromised. I customized. I have come to the knowledge of how, by a rather fortuitous twist of fate, I became the catalyst required for the squabbling thieves to sheath their swords. The facts are all in the public domain. You just need to know where to look and what to look for. I will help you out. A little patience. Afe knew at the time he was accepting the Eletu's brief after their loss at the Court of Appeal that they were not only poor, they were indigent. These people were impecunious. The most basic of honest legal research would also have led to the inescapable conclusion that they had become entitled to only the 10 hectares that they had accepted in settlement of their claim in M/779/93. The Eletus had also sold these 10 hectares almost immediately after it was originally released to them. Afe knew all of this, but he had clearly impecunious people execute an agreement with him for legal services and had same notarized by a magistrate. Afe knew that the Gazette of Acquisition had rendered the rights in the conveyance in Kuwait. He knew that with Lagos State not being a party in the suit at any point, that the acquisition was not invalidated by the farcical gyrations of the Supreme Court. He was fully aware that M/779/93 stopped his client from ever fighting the acquisition in perpetuity and rendered his claims fraudulent, including any Supreme Court pronouncement discountenancing these facts, invalid and nonsensical. But Afe knew that he could get the Supreme Court to do whatever he wanted and to rule however he asked. Pedro knew this too, and he being the original Lagos boy, showed Afe a bit of Lagos magic. Afe Babalola and the Eletus might have killed the buffalo, but they had no way of feeding from the carcass. We had turned the corrupt triumph at the Supreme Court into a Pyrrhic victory. And it was at this point that Pedro craftily inserted himself into the plot. He presented himself to the Eletus as the one that could get the corporate developers affected by the fraudulent judgment to pay up, and as the one that was best positioned to get them any form of recompense for their judgments. I have always enjoyed watching wildlife films and documentaries. I am particularly keen to draw parallels between the country of my birth and the animal world, and I warrant that you would be surprised to find how alike we are. When it comes down to it, if Afe Babalola might be likened to the lion, Lawal Pedro and the Lagos gang are the original African wild hyenas. They literally chased Afe Babalola off his scale. They repackaged the conspiracy, cut the losses, and went for the low-hanging fruit. As the trauma of the Eletu case left me increasingly disillusioned with the law, and the pursuit of corruptors of the court of justice became very personal to me, I took solace in comforting myself by using the Balogun case as proof that the clients that lost faith in my capacity to deliver justice to them were wrong. And even as I chafed at having been disabled by my bigger clients, I savored the pleasure of taking it to the Eletus and the gloating told you so to the corporate players who were panicked into settling with them. This was enough until AD Hammer caught up with Afe Babalola. He dragged Lawal Pedro before the Lagos High Court and the Eletus before the ICPC. Interesting. So when they cheated Afe Babalola had to he procured the fraudulent judgment, right? Then they cheated him. So what did he do? He dragged the Eletus to the ICPC that they were fraudsters. Dragged Pedro to the Lagos court that they are fraudsters. And he was the originator of the fraud. but he never benefited from it. I think now, we now know why Afe Babalola is even more angry at Dele Farotimi. How dare you go and say all of this? I did not make any money from this. I did not make anything. I was supposed to make billions from this, but I didn't make any money. I should. Now other people benefited. Now you wrote a whole book about me. Dele, eh? Okay, let's continue. Sometimes in 2016, I started hearing rumblings of some serious fight brewing between Chief Afe Babalola and Lawal Pedro. I was told that Chief Afe Babalola had written a petition to the LPDC, alleging that Lawal Pedro had railroaded his clients, Badamasi Eletu, into an agreement that circumvents his own legal agreement with the Eletus. About the same time, I also heard that the ICPC had been pressed into action against the Eletus, Lawal Pedro, and SB Joseph, which seemed quite incongruous, given the fact that the Eletus were not public officials. This event stirred an interest in me. I got my popcorn at the ready and waited to be entertained by the squabbling thieves. I had no idea that I was going to be forced into the fray. What transpired with the case is another story entirely, because it proved yet again to be another occasion where the Nigerian judiciary denuded itself, as well as Justice Oyekun Abdullahi. The judiciary at large confirmed above all else the Lagos conspiracy of the Afe Babalola to Supreme Court larger conspiracy. It is Afe's claim that he had a notarized contract for legal services with the Eletus. It is his claim that he discounted the original bill of $20 million to $10 million, and that whilst he had delivered on his obligation to prosecute the case at the Supreme Court, the Eletus had defaulted and had done so under the influence of Lawal Pedro San and SB Joseph Ashimi. Ashimi was tangentially implicated because of the fraud he coordinated with the then Surveyor General of the state, Surveyor Agbenla. So Afe Babalola was supposed to make $20 million, right, from the whole fraud. Okay? Then he signed an agreement with the Eletus that I will get you the judgment, don't worry. After the Eletus lost at the appeal court, they met with Afe Babalola. They didn't have money. They didn't have so much money to give him. So that if Afe Babalola could help them, right, they will pay him $10 million. So Afe Babalola used his own trick at the Supreme Court to get a fraudulent judgment, right, a fake one, that, but he couldn't execute the judgment. He needed the Lagos people to execute it. In the course of execution, they discounted it themselves, cut down their losses, and they went for the low-hanging fruit, those ones who have never developed their lands. And they started collecting billions of naira. Upon collecting all these billions, Afe Babalola just hear about the money. They don't give them. So Afe Babalola now felt used and dumped. He decided to use his further influence. Wrote the ICPC. I think this makes sense now. It makes sense now. No. At this point, you will understand why. It be like say, this book, Dele Farotimi used this book to open old wound. This was 2016, 8 years ago. Here you get. So Afe Babalola is like, you Dele, how dare you? You have been after me all this while. You have been the one that exposed the fraud. You are the one who we did everything to, and I didn't make any money from this. Now all these younger people are going to know that I am a fraud. I'm a very corrupt old man. But I didn't make money. I was cheated too. So if I say the money way Eletu and the rest no give Afe Babalola.
See you next time. Don't forget to share, like, and subscribe. This is Chokitable Media. God bless you as you do. See you next time. Bye for now.